SARMs.com, the #1 place to learn about SARMs online.
Welcome everyone. Dylan Gemelli here today with a brand new video for you, and in today's video I want to kind of focus on more of the post-cycle therapy aspect of things, and more specifically I want to talk about Clomid and Nolvadex and saying which one is maybe better or which one needs to be used in post-cycle, etc. Just kind of get the understanding out there to you about them a little bit, and just touch on them a little bit and kind of explain, you know, my method of post-cycle and what I feel is the best way to use either one or both. So basically, you know, Nolva and Clomid are both obviously the most popular SERMs out there. Now, what is a SERM? Is a selective estrogen receptor modulator. So it's basically a tried and true method of post-cycle therapy. And what exactly is post-cycle therapy? Post-cycle therapy is the time after you complete your cycle, after your esters have cleared. If you're running a longer ester, if you're running a shorter ester, you would start your post-cycle right after your last injection. If not, it would be 2 weeks after your last injection. Now, in many, many ways, Nolva and Clomid are looked at as identical. Okay? Are they? I'm going to get into that. I want to explain to you that during the post-cycle therapy phase of things, this is the recovery time. This is the most, let me just stress this, the most important part of any cycle. Without your recovery, you have no gains. Okay? You have no future in this, basically, because if you don't recover properly, then you're never going to have the abilities to make the gains that you need to make. You're not going to be feeling right. You're going to have internal and external problems and long-term damage, and you will never, ever, ever get to where you need to be. And chances are you will shorten your life. And the whole point here is to lengthen it. Okay, we want to lengthen your life. We want to develop an understanding here of how to do that and to do it the right way, and by preserving the problems that come from an anabolic cycle and getting past them and recovering quickly and recovering properly, you're giving yourself far greater chance of having a longer lifespan in this, and the greater ability to keep your gains, and the greater ability to actually extend your life. And that's what it's all about, and that's what I want to stress here. Okay, now some people look at Nolva and Clomid as an identical, okay, because they see that the same results can be obtained with either form, and I tend to agree and disagree because they are not the same. Now, do they accomplish the same thing, so to speak? Yes and no. The most common use of Nolva and Clomid is going to be during post-cycle therapy. Now, while the PCT period is generally about 4 weeks, it can go to 6 to 8 weeks depending on the length of the cycle. If you're running a cycle that's over 20 weeks, I would go 6 weeks post-cycle minimum, probably on the upwards of 8 weeks though. Okay, Nolva and Clomid are very, very powerful. Some people argue that either one is better. A lot more people have the argument of Nolva being, you know, more effective than Clomid because of the anti-estrogen abilities it contains. It contains far greater anti-estrogen properties than Clomid ever could dream of having. So a lot of people look at it, you know, basically like on that regard only. I have always felt and found that Clomid will actually kickstart, you know, your testosterone production quicker, but some will argue that Nolvadex does as well. What I've always felt personally, and through studies and through watching it, if somebody picked one or the other, that Clomid would be more optimal in that regard. Now, Clomid seems to carry, you know, it basically, okay, let's look at it on a milligram to milligram basis. You have to use far less amounts of Nolva as you do as Clomid. Generally, when you're running Nolvadex, it's a 40 milligram the first 1 to 2 weeks, and then drop down to 20. I've seen people that run crazy exuberant amounts of Clomid up on the 150 milligram areas, which is ridiculous. I've always felt that only 50 milligrams is needed at the most, but many people will argue that 100 is needed, but that's where you're going to run into more side effects. You're going to feel more, female related side effects where you're more emotional. You can have vision issues, etc. The purpose of post-cycle therapy is quite simple, okay? It's to stimulate your natural testosterone production again. And that has been suppressed throughout an entire steroid cycle. Anabolics are going to suppress you throughout. So the basis of your post-cycle is to reteach your body how to generate testosterone production. This is not the only aspect of post-cycle therapy, but it's the base of it. Okay, it's the most important part of it. So throughout post-cycle therapy, you're going to need at least one or the other. I am an advocate of using both. I think they both bring something special to the table and that you need them both, regardless of the cycle you're running. So what these SERMs have the ability to do is to stimulate the release of your LH, which is your luteinizing hormone. Okay, and that promotes the production of testosterone. So as you understand, testosterone is produced in the testicles, and such production actually occurs due to the release of your LH by the pituitary gland. So when the pituitary gland releases LH, this signals the testicles to actually begin producing testosterone. Because without your LH, there is no production, and without production, there is no testosterone. So that's basically in a nutshell how they work. Now, some people tend to use Nolvadex on cycle to help with estrogen issues. I do not ever see the point of using Clomid on cycle. There is no point, there is no rhyme or reason to do so. I don't really even care for Nolvadex being used on cycle when such anti-estrogens like Aromacin or Arimidex are right there at your fingertips that are actually real aromatase inhibitors. That would be my optimal option there. But in terms of utilizing Nolva and Clomid in post-cycle therapy, you can't go wrong with either one. Okay? Both are going to carry some side effects with them, but if they're dosed properly and you're using them both, you don't need to use as much, and that inhibits the side effects and gets you even better results. That's another reason why I like to use them both. Why would you use Clomid at 100 some milligrams per day when you could drop it to 50 down to 25, and Nolvadex from 40 down to 20 and avoid the side effects and get all the normal recovery plus some? Then you add something like Aromacin into your post-cycle, and I like to add a couple SARMs in there to stop cortisol problems and to help get you past a lot of the trying times that you'll have through post-cycle with strength loss and just that overall mental block that can occur. So that's what I look at as a perfect post-cycle therapy. But for me, Nolva and Clomid both need to be used during your post-cycle. That's going to give the best results. That's going to give you the best recovery, and that's going to be the best protocol for you. So, Dylan Gemelli, signing off.